Miranda. The more exciting bit is probably later rather than now, I assume. But good morning and welcome everybody to Making It Real 4. It's certainly a pleasure for myself. It's my first Making It Real event and I'm pleased to be here. Our theme today is making localism work in Leicester, and many of you will have heard about the government's big society. I have my own views and I'm sure many of you have your own as well, but we do need to discuss this as part of the position for Leicester, so it's good that everybody is participating, and I'm pleased that there is so many of you here today. We hope that you will give your ideas, asking you to be frank, because that's what we need to do in this event, and be honest, and please do convey your opinions. The previous Making It Real events, I'm informed, did generate a lot of ideas, and we want that to happen at this event as well. Today is not just about talking and listening, it's about partners and organisations making the commitments to take forward those ideas and views and go away with plans and action plans. And Leicester does have a strong tradition of the voluntary service, something that I personally am very supportive of, and will continue to pursue my support for the voluntary sector that has played such an important part in delivering services and supporting our communities and meeting the needs of the many vulnerable people in Leicester, and more so that need is now than I believe has ever been. But we are facing a time of austerity and cuts, both in this year and over the next few years, I'm sure. The cuts, however, will have greater impact, just not only because they're reducing those services, but the occurrence that inevitably will follow. There's also a greater demand for services, particularly public services in a city like Leicester, and it's good that we're able to discuss how those demands might be met, especially when there's less money around, and we have our budget meeting at the full council tomorrow, which will outline some of the decisions that the administration has had to take. And we've not backed away from some of those very tough decisions. Our aim throughout has been to make those cuts in ways that least affect frontline services, and this we can all do to protect the vulnerable people and also our essential services. A lot of our public sector partners are also taking those decisions, and many will certainly affect the voluntary sector. Before I move on to the localism agenda, I just want to say a brief word about the census and why that is so important to Leicester, particularly important to my financial portfolio for the local authority. It is more than just a head count. Much of our funding from central government is based on population figures, and if we don't manage to get everyone in Leicester recorded, then there's less money coming into the city, and it impacts on our services to the vulnerable, to children, and everybody else who rely so much on the public services. So it is something which is important, something which we would ask for your support. It is carried out in the strictest of confidence, and by law the information recorded cannot be shared with anybody, including housing and police. So for many people filling in those forms, filling in the census, it's a new experience. We know that there's likely to be about 30,000 people more from the census in 2001, people who were born abroad but now live in Leicester, and there's a lot of people to encourage and help to fill in those forms, and I'm sure that everybody will be able to help and convey that message. We do need to work together in order that we do get the best outcome we can on the census, and your support is very useful. I know many groups are running events where people can help with filling in the forms, and that's really a good idea, and if appropriate, I'd encourage many of you to run similar sessions, as well as publicising the importance of the census for all of us. Resources and funding are always important to Leicester to make the most of some of the new rights the government is saying that it wants to pass on to communities and individuals. The government says it believes in local people having local government to account, holding them to account. Localism bill sets out a number of those proposals and the government, central government, towards local people. They're also asking for a debate amongst councils community groups, volunteers, social activists as well, and others about how they can seize the opportunities the government feels that the Localism Bill presents. And let's have a debate on that, and I think this is the start of that debate. And having had to go through one of the most difficult, if not the most toughest budget process in living memory I can remember, I certainly have a few things to say, and I suspect that many more people will have at tomorrow's council meeting as well. But we do need to talk about each other and how we can make the localism agenda work for Leicester, because that's where we are. We will be kicking off with views and ideas from our speakers. We'll consider then what changes we need to make in Leicester and how we can put them into place. We anticipate some lively discussion and debate, ending with some clear actions that we can take forward. So to start with, we will be hearing from Kim Curry, who's the Strategic Director for Adults and Communities, about public sector perspective on localism, and after that we'll get the voluntary sector view from Cllr, Chair of the VCS Assembly Executive Board as well. We do have a keynote address from Sir Stephen Bubb, Chief Executive of the Association of Chief Executives of Voluntary Organisations, and he will talk about the relationship between the voluntary and community sector and the public sector, and I'm so sure Stephen will give us some interesting and also some visionary ideas of how we can, in Leicester, develop the generally positive relations we've built over the years. That's followed by 3 workshops, 2 for discussion and 1 for action planning. And each workshop will consist of some discussions at your table, followed by an opportunity to feed back to everyone. And there will also be a facilitator on each table, and notes will be taken, so that a report can be produced at the end and compiled, and that everybody can receive a report. The first workshop, due to start at 11 a.m, and conveniently it will be led by Mohammed Dawood, who's just arrived in time, so I can introduce him. And we'll talk about how we can better understand the contribution that the voluntary and community sector makes to this city. There will be a short break at 11:30, but as Miranda said, anybody needs a break in between, please do follow the directions. There will be a discussion about how localism will work and changing relationships between the voluntary and community sectors and public sector, and that will be led by Miranda, who's the Director of Change and Programme Management at the Council. Lunch is at 12:30, we'll reconvene at 1:15, and the afternoon session is about actions about the future. And we want to go away with some firm commitments to taking actions and ideas that have emerged from the morning session. The latter session will be led by Kevin Lyles, the Chief Executive of Voluntary Action, Leicestershire. So finally, I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time today. I'm looking forward to the views and certainly the report, and I hope that together we can move forward as part of the localism work in Leicester. Thank you.